I started this a while ago and I got sidetracked, but I just wanted to make an announcement that I'm going to teach anybody who wants to learn how to bartending on this video. I'll have different videos of different things that occur and stuff like that, of different, I guess, stories and different experiences you could have. But I became a bartender well after I should have. But once I became it, I realized it was a great field to make money, to live, to survive in a world, no matter what your education level, no matter what challenges you are. If you became a bartender, you would make money and you would live really well. Um, and that's what we're going to do here. I have the next video I'm going to show you is I have a book because I actually went to bar school. I know people make fun of that. And that's not something you should talk about. But the first bar school I went to was 2 weeks long. And I pretty much learned everything I needed to in those 2 weeks. That's how ironic it was. And the funny thing is, you had to keep it a secret that you went to bar school because a lot of times when you get into the field, I've seen it with some of the people on YouTube. They kind of like they're against bar school and things like that. You could tell the difference between somebody that actually knows something and somebody that just sort of fakes it. And most people that learn how to bartend without getting knowledge or reading a book or seeing and observing things, um, they don't really know what they're doing. They don't really want to study it. They just want to make the money quick and get in, get out, and they suffice. They get through it. But if you know your knowledge, knowledge is power, and if you have power behind the bar, you keep it a secret. But it's one of those things that you're going to realize, hey, it's good I know that because now you're going to be more confident in your stride when you bartend. You're also going to be more confident in your drink making ability, and you're also going to be confident enough that you can pretty much go anywhere and do what you do in any bar around the world. And you don't actually have to go to a bar school for it, but you have to be open for learning. And the main thing here is that's why I wanted to bring into the. I've been to a few bar schools, not on purpose. Sometimes the places I worked at, they wanted us to go through more additional training. It's a weird city I live in. A lot of cities are not like that, but I appreciate it every time. I love the knowledge. I was a college graduate when I became a bartender, um, and I didn't think I was smarter than anybody. But when you're in college, you kind of have to suck up a lot of information you don't really care about. And then when I was learning about bartending, it just became this passion of mine right away. And the funny thing is, my father, he wasn't a drunk or anything, but he was an engineer. But a lot of engineers like to drink, and he was always, when I was younger, trying to give me a beer or something. No, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. I don't need a beer. But my younger brother would drink beer all the time. Um, but I was anti-drinking. I was trying to be an athlete. I was trying to do a lot of different things. And then when I got injured, I started to realize one of my neighbors took me out to like my 21st birthday. Um, it was a cool bar. It was like I think it was called the Fourth Fighter. It was like a pilot bar. A bunch of pilots used to go to this bar. They brought me in there, and it was probably one of the best nights I ever had in my life because it just felt like I understood why people like to drink. It's about socializing. It's about letting to free the mind a little bit legally, right? I didn't really ever get into any drugs, but it was more of like a freedom that you could kind of like you feel released in your mind, your thought a little bit, and you kind of for somebody that's like a dreamer like I was, it was probably the best thing in the world because I just felt like I was sort of like on top of the world at those moments. You go through different phases of being a drunk to being like just a pleasant drinker, things like that. But um, when you become a bartender, one of the rules of bartending is to kind of understand what people want and know what they and how they want their drink to be made. And it takes a little while. It takes a little tricky. It doesn't just when you come out of bar school doesn't mean you can become a great bartender, but it forms a great foundation that when you're behind the bar, I've never worked in a restaurant at the time. I've never worked in a bar before. And when I started working it was just opened up my eyes. I was like, this is really cool. It was scary at the same time, being that young and trying something completely different than I ever thought I would be doing. And my father, though, was so proud of me because, he liked to drink beer and stuff. And, he was a respectable citizen. He was an engineer. He did his thing. But um, I think he really realized, hey, this kid is actually my son because he's doing something that I remember my father, he used to drive me because I didn't live by the bar school. I left the town that I graduated college, and he drove me in because he worked in that city. He drove me in the morning, like 6 or 7 in the morning. He'd be driving, and I'd just be sleeping in it because I wasn't a morning person. So that's why I knew the bartending thing might be good for me because most of the bar shifts are at night. So I remember him driving me in, and I have my cue cards, and I'm memorizing stuff. And he would be like, "Oh, what's that drink?" He was getting all excited that I was learning about drinks and garnishes and glassware and etiquette behind the bar. And it was a 2-week crash course. And I don't know, I sucked into it really quickly, and I really took it seriously. I studied every night. A lot of the people in the class didn't really care. They just taking it for fun or whatever. But my mission was to get through the school and get a job and make good money. Um, I was having trouble outside of college getting jobs. I think the only job I got offered was, I think I mentioned it before, a Wendy's job to be a assistant manager, which was cool. I mean, I remember the guy interviewed me to this day. I remember his office had spatulas on the wall, the golden spatulas of accomplishments, and I don't know. I just remember looking, going, "Am I really going to be a Wendy's manager?" No offense to Wendy's. I used to love their food and stuff, and I was ready to do it. And at this point, maybe I would have been like a district person for Wendy's or something. But at that time, I thought, I don't know, maybe I should try something different. And that's why I made the choice. That was the only job I got out of college. I put in for a ton of jobs. That was the only one that offered me a job. And I remember calling him, and I felt bad about it. But I said, "Hey, man, I got to go a different direction." And he's like, "Okay, man, I understand if you change your." He actually told me if I ever change my mind. I feel like calling him right now. But um, you take these steps in life. Sometimes you make a decision that you might not realize how big that decision is, and it changed my life. I feel like it changed it for the better. There was some different times of different places I worked that they were iffy, but for the most part, I think the bar world exposed me to a different world, and it made me realize that there's more to life than just working like sort of like a 9 to 5 situation. It's when you become a bartender, you don't just become a bartender. You become a person that has things that they want to do other than bartending, but the bartending gives them the freedom and the money and the really the health and social. I wasn't very social at that time, so it taught me to be a really sociable person. So it's a great field to be in. So that's why I want to bring in the training to everybody that I learned. I think it would be helpful for people to actually get free training, and I'll probably make a copy of the book at some point. I don't think there's any copyright issues on it because I'm not going to be charging anybody for it. But it's a simple book, and I want to go through page by page with you guys, and it's going to probably stimulate memories of things that I learned with it. And this is the first book that I used to learn about bartending, and it's just their course book. It was so good, and to this day, the stuff that I learned in there, I remember sitting there going, "Why would I care about blackberry brandy and all that kind?" But everything that was in the book was such a great foundation that when I got into the bar situation and drinks were occurring, I understood how drinks got invented. I understood the whole process of it. A lot of 90%, I would say 99% of the people I worked with didn't have any idea. They didn't care either. They just wanted to make the money and get out. But the problem is, you could tell if a bartender really is passionate about what they do and really loves what they do. And I was one of those. And it took a little time to sort of master the drink making, and it took a little time to really master the personalities that come to the bar, because it's almost like you got to be a chameleon to everybody that comes in there. Now, you don't have to do any of that. You could just ignore everybody and be a jerk to everybody, but it's going to get you in the end. Managers won't like it and things like that, and the people coming up are not going to like you as much. And I worked in a town where, I won't tell you, but I call it a town, but it was a city that people come from all over the world to see, and there's a lot of rules here with restaurants. You can't be a jerk to people. If you're in Boston or New York or even LA, um, You could pretty much be who you want to be behind the bar and get away with it. But in the city I was at, it's a city that people come from all. They attract people from all over the world to come, and it was really interesting to see, the rules that you had to be as a bartender working for people. But then you see people coming around the world. You don't know how to communicate with 90% of them because they're from different cultures, different places. But you adapt pretty quickly, and you kind of become their friend. And that's the thing about bartending that people don't really talk about. It's if you go behind the bar and you don't really take the customer or the guest, I call them, as somebody that's really how do you say, somebody that's really, the people come to bars for many different reasons, but the real reason they come to a bar is they just want a place that they feel comfortable at. And if you don't make the place comfortable for them, they're not going to really want to sit that long, and they're not going to spend a lot of money, and they're just going to walk off their tabs and stuff like that. So wherever you work, I've worked in pretty much every bar there is in this town. You're going to have to adapt to the different situations. And we'll talk about drinks, we'll talk about behavior, we'll talk about how to respond to certain things, how to limit people from getting drunk and driving and all that good stuff. Because that's the difference between me and a lot of people I worked with. Nobody really cared about that. I cared about it because, I don't know, I grew up a little different, and plus I was educated at the time, and I felt like I don't want to kill people from giving out alcohol during the night. That would kill me, especially if you have children and things like that. You don't want to ever hear about anybody getting in a car accident because they got something from you and they got in the car. So that's the thing about bartending. That's the scary part. But when you get in there, you're part of the safety of people as well. So if you see something going awry, you can stop it. You can save a life. You can save people from underage drinking all day long. It's not worth a $5 tip to serve somebody that's under 21, because you get caught, you can never bartend again in that town, in that state probably. There's all these dram shop laws and different things that are out there. But if you go behind the bar, you take it really responsible, make sure everybody's of age, and make sure people are, not so intoxicated that they can't even function, then you're going to be okay. And I know you're going to have a great life. I mean, I'll just leave you with this. When I first started at a real bar, I'll tell you about that later, another story about that. When I finally got a job at a real bar, it took a little while. But once you get that first job at the real bar, you kind of like, you feel like you made it a little bit, if you really respect what you're doing. And there was an older gentleman who's probably younger than me now, but like when I met him, he was saying, "You're never going to leave the bar world, buddy." I'm like, "What?" I was just doing it just to make money until one of my screenplays or a song sold or something. I was a dreamer. Now I can sleep in. I could wake up without an alarm clock. That was the best thing in the world. But I'm not going to be a bartender forever. And he just kind of looked at me. "Yeah, you will, man. Nah, I know you will." Because I think he sensed that I was really, I was good at what I did, and I was pretty early in the career. But I think he realized, because he must have been on the same journey when he first started, that he didn't expect himself to be in this that long, and he just, he was an older gentleman. And he made it that long in the bar world. And usually when you're a bartender, it's your 20s, early 30s, and then most of the time you get out at that point. But he was beyond it. I've seen so many bartenders in their 40s, 50s, 60s over my lifetime. It was hard to leave the profession because the money is so good, right? There's fluctuations and things like that, but the money is so good, so it's hard to leave, and it's hard to take a day off, because you have a day off, you lose out on the cash. And we'll talk about how much money you should be making and things like that. Every city's a little different, but that's the thing. You become kind of rich bartending. And that's the thing people don't talk about. If you don't think you're rich as a bartender, you are, but you don't want to exploit the richness and buy fancy cars and drive to work with it, because the managers that make about $30,000-$40,000 a year are going to be like, why is he driving a fancy car? Is he stealing from the restaurant? And that's why bartenders get fired a lot, because they get good money and then they start spending it and showing off that's what you got to be careful of. So we'll talk about all that, but I want to start probably the next video. We'll introduce the book that started it all for me, and we'll go through a lot of different books during this thing. I think it's kind of neat to, I'll just do some readings from the book, and then we'll talk about what those types of drinks are and different things that what they're explaining in the book and stuff. I think it'll be kind of cool. But I thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to the next video, and I'll talk to you all later. Thanks. Bye.